Namaste. I'm happy to be a part of this international conference on visualizing a global education policy for total consciousness. Myself, Dr. Lakshmi A, Assistant Professor, NSS Training College, Pantalam, Kerala. I am presenting some views on the topic cognitive concept of consciousness. Let us see what is consciousness. Consciousness, as most of us are aware, is the central idea in the philosophy of mind. The word consciousness is interpreted differently by various philosophers. For some, it denotes an inner, private, subjective, qualitative phenomenon of awareness. For others who object to this view, consciousness manifests itself in public physical behavior. But consciousness stands for the present state of mind. A person must be aware of his mental state. Consciousness includes not only an awareness of our present mental state, but also an awareness of the states that are yet to be recognized. Consciousness means an individual's awareness of their unique thoughts, memories, feelings, sensations, and environments. Essentially, consciousness is awareness of oneself and the world around him. This awareness is subjective and unique to each individual. If a person can describe something he is experiencing in words, then it is a part of his consciousness. At this point, the words of His Holiness Swami Isha assume significance. According to Swamiji, the body-based consciousness, that is, vibrating consciousness, needs for its existence pure and absolute consciousness, that is, non-vibrating consciousness. That consciousness is called Supreme Consciousness. As envisaged by Swamiji, normally consciousness is regarded as the light that makes things real or thoughts real. Light is essential to give entity to the thought. It exists between two thoughts, and this light is called consciousness. The light of the sun that burns itself out lightens some of the objects we see, but to see these objects with the aid of the sunlight, we need the omnipresent light within. This light is known as consciousness. The experience of supreme consciousness in varied level enables a person to understand things clearly or not. Similarly, thought clouds hide consciousness, and without knowing about things around, one is led to darkness. These thoughts of Swamiji clearly shows that consciousness plays an important role or powerful role in making a person aware of the world around him. Let's coming to cognition and consciousness. Cognition is defined as knowledge processing mediated by the central nervous system. Both cognition and consciousness depend on the organization and complexity of the organism, primarily about the nervous system. Different approaches define cognition and consciousness in different perspectives. Consciousness can be regarded as a driving force in evolution, amplifying and improving the adaptive and cognitive process of an organism. From the above discussion, it is clear that there is a strong bond between cognition and consciousness. Supreme consciousness. The relationship between consciousness and cognition is the core of thought of Swami Isha. Swamiji envisages that supreme consciousness is not vibrating. When the vibration starts, that is body-based vibrations. This vibration hides the supreme consciousness, that is non-vibration. But the supreme consciousness is still there, just like the sun hidden by the clouds created by his interaction with the oceans. Supreme consciousness is everywhere. Normal knowledge is vibrating and it is information. But there is another kind of knowledge. This knowledge is called absolute and it comes from the non-vibration. In order to have access to this knowledge, one should have access to supreme consciousness. Similar to the sun, one is able to see it in between two clouds. A human being is able to perceive the supreme consciousness in between the thoughts, provided the gap between two is sufficient. Swamiji writes that we need to increase the space between the two thoughts. The effort and know-how to do things is why we need a teacher or guru, the one who brings light. Attainment of supreme consciousness. In the thoughts of Swamiji, the body-based consciousness, that is vibrating consciousness, needs for existence pure and absolute consciousness, that is non-vibrating consciousness. That consciousness is called supreme consciousness. It is also called by terms like Anandam, Sat, Chit, Atma, Purnam, etc. That is the omnipresent light. Consciousness and cognition. Swamiji compares thoughts to clouds. Clouds always move, so also thoughts. Like clouds, atoms of darkness flow on closely and continuously, creating a screen. Similarly, a curtain is created as the thoughts flow, one after another. This screen prohibits the light necessary to grasp the new knowledge one receives. Then, screen is the factor that prevents a student from understanding a topic. When a student strays away from his proper setup for study and take into emotion thousands of unnecessary thoughts and become more and more entangled in these thoughts, the topic that he has to study will be beyond his understanding. Then the topic will become a sorrowful burden to the student and it will keep him away from studies. Thoughts have to provide light for studies. When the distance between the thoughts increase, the student will be able to understand and absorb just by listening. He will also become the citadel of knowledge. It is the primary duty of the teacher to understand and find out the capability of the student. But the teacher has to practice and perfect this by in his own life in order to understand the student. The teacher who knows himself from his own experience is the real guru or master. That master will always be the source of light to the student. When both the teacher and the student attain this knowledge about knowledge, the teacher can decide on the class suitable for the student, and such learning will give him perfect knowledge. Only then the student-teacher relationship will become the light of real knowledge. To attain the omnipresent light, one becomes the student and the other guru. When the skill to reach this stage is attained, teacher-pupil relationship becomes meaningful. So there should be a balance between cognitive process and consciousness. To conclude, as Swamiji says, all our actions, that means cognitive process, are focused on the attainment of consciousness. That is a form of synchronization between body and external world. Bridging cognition and consciousness will help in achieving supreme consciousness. That is the central idea of Swamiji's philosophy. Thank you.